As you probably know, I'm a pretty big fan of life. Way to go, life. I think life's pretty fucking awesome. Unfortunately, there's no real instruction book for life. Some people get really lucky. Their parents were raised by normal people, whose parents were raised by normal people, whose parents were raised by normal people, and they live in a society that hasn't really changed very much in the last few thousand years, and they get pretty good instruction for what works. Well, for almost everybody today, at least the last part doesn't really apply. The world has been changing so quick. I mean, literally 10 years ago, there wasn't a TV show that existed that wouldn't use the idea of transsexuality as a punchline. Literally, none. You couldn't be that liberal. It didn't exist. And today, if you go off subject on that, you can lose your livelihood. Things change quickly. My point isn't that. My point is just that we're kind of in uncharted territory here. As for me personally, well, I had certain blessings, certain less than blessings. My parents were each raised by orphans. My grandparents in their formative years were in the delicate embrace of Hitler and his friends. They were all Jews in Europe during the Holocaust. That was their formative years. That's where they came from. Whatever sort of stability they had beforehand, whatever they could have learned from their parents went up in smoke, and they saw the smoke. And when they were teens, that's where they were. And those people showing up out of something worse than any kind of hell that can be imagined, raised the two people who decided they should fuck and create me. I appreciate it. I'm really happy to be here. Let's be honest. If not, I have to appreciate Hitler too. If not for him, my grandparents never would have met. But my parents, at least, unlike Hitler, my parents had really good intentions in creating me and in raising me, and I'm sure they did the best that they could. They had no instruction manual for life either. And the world in which they were raised was entirely different than the world that their parents lived even after they moved to the States. Never mind the world that I was raised in. A particular blessing that I have is that completely regardless of anything to do with right and wrong and morality and God and religion and society and karma and why it's whatever, I like being nice to people. I like making people happy. Not always, not all the time. I definitely hope that you can catch a few hundred times in my life where I've been an asshole for no reason. Otherwise, I would be some sort of saint, and that's gross. That's not even human. But I'm absolutely certain that you can catch, if I have attempted for people not to catch, but a few 100,000 times where I have been quite nice to human beings. The only one example that I'll give you right now. It says in the Bible, Jacob, I was not in the Bible. Jacob in the Bible, he's a dude in the Bible. Before he dies, he asks his son Joseph, who was at that point the prime minister of Egypt, he asks him for a chesed that is emes, a kindness that is true, a true kindness, that after he would be dead, he would be buried in his homeland, what Canaan, Israel, Palestine, I don't care what you call it, let's not go there right now. Al na tikbareni b'Mitzrayim, please don't bury me in Egypt. A chesed that is emes, a kindness that is true. And what he means, what the explanations are, obviously this is the Bible, so every single word has been debated by a zillion people, but the generally accepted explanation is a true kindness because I can never pay you back, I will already be dead. That's what makes it a true kindness. Me personally, over the course of just a few years, while I was in Israel studying to be a rabbi, I, well, during the COVID lockdowns recently, I was hearing a lot of people saying that they were doing their things for the sake of the olds. We had to shut off the nursing homes to save the nursing home people. And I had to mention, and again, I don't like, I'm ashamed to be mentioning it now, but I have my purpose now, and I had my purpose then. My purpose then was that I know old people in nursing homes, and I know what they want, and I know what they need, and it's much, much worse to close them off. Much, much worse for them to close them off than anything else. So I had to do the math on it. And that was that over a particular 5-year period, never mind a lot before and after, but over a certain 5-year period when I was living about a half-hour walk from a particular hospice where people would go to die, people who didn't have friends, relatives, money, and it was a place that didn't even have lights. This place was built in the 1800s, a very foreboding, terrible, terrible place. You walk in there and it's just people, the only sounds you hear are people screaming, begging for death. There are people I know who can testify to that. And I spent around 2,000 hours on my own visiting people there. I got others to go visit them. I gave them money I got them tape recorders this was 20 years ago. Actually, some of them might have been CD. No, they were tape recorders, probably cheaper. Didn't have much money. Tape recorders for each and every one of their rooms. I arranged a schedule for people to visit them every single day. I held their hands. I sang with them. I danced with them. I arranged to take them out. There was someone there named Shmuel who had not been able to utter a word for over a decade. He was completely immobile, including vocally. And when I got a whole bunch of people together and we lit the Hanukkah menorah, the Hanukkah lights, and we sang and danced around his bed, when I made the blessing, he said, Amen, or in English, Amen, Iman, in Arabic, Amen. First word he had spoken, his family, he had not been able to speak. Okay, let me get back to my point. My point is that I'm fortunate that I get happiness out of, in general, being good. Unfortunately, we live in a world where every so often you'd run into sociopaths and psychopaths and people who are just the very worst that exist, and that no matter what you do, no matter what you say, they act and speak like normal humans, but they are not. They are mimicking humans, and they have no heart, and they have no regrets and no compunctions and no sense of right and wrong, and they will do whatever they can. They don't care what they get away with. I have hardly ever had to deal with a situation long enough because I'm very easy and quick to apologize and take the blame, even if it's not my fault, whatever. I don't understand long-term relationships, cohabitating relationships. That's something I'm really, really not good at. You could probably chalk some of that up to the family that I came from and the families that each of them came from. We never really quite understood how to do that well. You could also chalk it up to the fact that throughout human history, nobody's ever figured out, aside for a select few who are so few that you don't know any. There are families you think have it all perfect, and that's only because you don't see the really bad stuff, no matter how well you might know them. I have gotten to know many, many people very, 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 very well, including some of the finest people in the world. I mean this seriously. And I don't know of any perfect family, but I have met literally maybe 4 that have it like they really did a good job, like exceptional, like that 20% of society that seem like they're exceptional, they really are exceptional. For the most part, relationships are tough. Going back to the Bible, which is a field I know a little bit about, you'll find that with Adam and Eve onwards, you'll find that the stories of husbands and wives and brothers, Cain and Abel, the first ones, these things are difficult. And let me say, my solution for myself has been, all right, I'm upfront with people. I don't really know how to do close cohabitating long-term relationships. So whatever kind of relationship we have, know that up front. And, that sort of honesty does enough good. But in the short term, in relationships you have to have with people in society or choose to have with people in society, every once in a while you're going to run into a situation that is just incorrigible. In-fucking-corrigible. I'm dealing with one right now. Scam artists, dentists doing an affinity scam in the Orthodox Jewish community. Affinity means it's an English word meaning that you feel a closeness with somebody. And oftentimes, small groups of people that are perhaps related to each other or have a similar culture or that usually come from the same background, or in this case, all of the above, they have a closer affinity for each other. I'm not going to do the whole anti-Semitic Jews all taking care of each other shit. If you're watching this, if anybody, I would very much love and have offered sincere anti-Semites to please come on a podcast with me and let's have a talk. We can discuss that subject. If you're Jewish or if you are normal, you're aware of the fact that it's way quite overrated. Yeah, sure, Orthodox Jews in particular are supposed to help each other out well above and beyond anything possible. Lots of religious groups have that for their people. But very few groups of people at any point in history have ever been able to pull it off, except, sadly, during times of war. When they have to actually fight and kill other people, they develop that brotherhood in arms. Anyway, this is something that I'm working on in this world trying to fix. But an affinity scam is when you take advantage of people's trust. And in this instance, what you have is there are these businesses that particularly target ultra-Orthodox Jews who are much less likely to sue, much less likely to complain. You have to understand that the Torah, the Jewish Bible, also part of the Christian Bible, is very serious on the matter of brotherhood, on the matter of not just not speaking ill of people if it's false, not speaking ill of people if it's true, and not even speaking of people. Really, dead serious. In the age of Twitter, you might find this impossible to believe. But loiselech rochil ba'amecha, you should not have peddlers in your midst. The Bible says really straight up and clearly, don't be telling stories about people. Good, bad, whatever. Don't be telling stories. Don't be a peddler of stories about people. But the Bible is basically telling you how to survive civilization. Literally, Torah means instructions. It's the closest that we've got to a rule book, and I think we have to admit that throughout history, plenty of people who have read this rule book have somehow not necessarily made the world better. Quite unfortunate. But I would argue personally that most people who have read this rule book have made the world better. That's a separate point as well. We can discuss it at some other time. But this idea that if you haven't experienced something for yourself, then you shouldn't trust what other people say is unbelievable. It's amazing. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. And it kind of undoes what I'm trying to do right now, saying, listen, by law, you shouldn't trust me what I have to say about someone else, certainly if it's negative. Even if it isn't negative, you shouldn't be hearing stories from other people. But again, in this world that we live, especially where we're communicating more through screens than we are face-to-face, particularly with strangers, this is kind of how information gets around. We're going to have to figure this shit out. I have ideas. I've been trying to get some of them out. Please help me get some more subscribers. Please help more people have access to the things that I'm saying, to my videos. And if they want, they should subscribe. I don't want anyone to do it out of any sense of right and wrong or responsibility or whatever else. But you know what I'm saying. So these dental people, they hire disgraced dentists who have lost their practice in other places, people who have had terrible lawsuits against them, and they have them work on Orthodox Jews. They advertise under misleading pretenses, certainly within the law. Actually, of course not certainly within the law, but the law is however good a lawyer you can afford in America. It's fucked up, but that is the case. The law is more or less however good a lawyer you can afford in America. That's why they make such a big deal whenever some rich guy goes to jail, like the Harvey Weinstein case or the Enron people from like 20 years ago. People still know about Enron from 25 years ago. Because when a rich person goes to jail, it's news. That's not supposed to happen. So, yeah, poor people going to jail every fucking day. So the law kind of is however good your lawyer is, however friendly your lawyer is with the judge, etc. It's also something I've been working on, and again, without very much, what's the word? Clout, attention, there's little I can do about it. What they would do, these people, is they advertise in these ultra-Orthodox Jewish magazines and newspapers, and they have the names of good professional doctors on there, and great prices, how they're going to take care if you need an implant for your tooth. Pointing here because I need two, in part because of one of their doctors messing up, but it's possible, let me state right up front, it's possible that they were both needing to be removed and implanted even before any of their dentists touched me. There's a different dentist, because generally speaking, if you don't have the wherewithal to go for very good doctors and dentists and lawyers, well, you're going to get those who are not really all that good and don't necessarily care all that much. It's one of those things about rich getting richer, poor getting poorer sort of instances. Yeah, America needs help. I hate talking about this shit without offering solutions because I think life is awesome and I think people complain all the fucking time and I think that's terrible. So please let me just end this complaint video, because it's not really a complaint video. It's a video saying don't fuck with me. And it's a video to people who aren't watching this even, who don't even know this exists just yet. But those few times in life where somebody has 100% in the wrong, fucked me over in some major, major way, and despite my various attempts to make peace, they continued to do so simply because they could, because I'm one of those people who it appears can easily be taken advantage of. If you get to know me well enough, you see how I'm kasha lichais noyach l'ratzos. It takes a long while to get me angry, and it's very easy to appease me. I don't like drama, I don't hold grudges, etc. I don't do that. Why would I? It's just not within my pleasure. Leaving aside anything to do with religion or what's good and all the rest, telling you straight out, not within my pleasure. But it has happened a number of times where people have had to receive their recompense. Very, very, very few. But I did recently just write an email to this dentist people, because it's a whole company they got going there, obviously. A whole company they got going. No doubt the best lawyers, too. That's what these people spend money on, by the way. Just so you know, straight up front, scam artists, people who scam for many, many, many years on end, the majority of their expense goes into lawyers. I'm saying I know this. I know the world. I engage in intimate conversations with numerous people, dozens of people who are, I don't want to say billionaires because some of them might have only had $500 million, but dozens of people who have had at least $500 million, who own at least $500 million, I have had intimate conversations with, and also dozens of murderers, which, generally don't have $500 million. But I'm just trying to give you two examples at the extremes, and all sorts of people in the instance, and I'm telling you how scam people work. So I let these people know what I guess I ought to let the world know. I don't want to, but I guess I ought to just say quickly enough. Just two instances out of perhaps four that I can think of. There might be another one that deserves the recompense, but they're not bothering me, and therefore I let it go. It doesn't matter. The only times that I deal with something is when they don't let it go and have to be dealt with as a self-defense mechanism. Otherwise, there have been people who have done some terrible things, and if they're not in my life, I completely let it go. The joy of vengeance, which is real, it exists. People seem to love it. Is something that I have very, very, very limited amount of familiarity with. But two instances. One is an individual who spat in my face, said, "I can buy you and sell you." Because I accidentally, I swear this is true, somebody asked me for a favor. I did a favor for that person, not knowing that that person was in a squabble with this asshole. Oh, by the way, this particular asshole, close to a billionaire himself, the guy who spat in my face buying and something, that guy, was in a squabble with that guy. And therefore, this guy came at me and in public went off his fucking rocker. I have one regret regarding that instance. My one regret regarding that instance is somebody asked me about a shidduch. Shidduch means setting somebody up on a date, matchmaking, which is how Orthodox Jews more or less do it, matchmaking through knowing people. So there was a match set up with this fellow's daughter that people knew that I knew this guy, the girl, the family. And therefore, distant relatives of the man who's being set up with this girl asked me what I thought. It wouldn't have mattered what I thought because they had already gone through all of the official channels. But when it comes to setting up their kids, ultra-Orthodox Jews will stop at nothing, asking anybody they possibly can. And I didn't know what to say. Sure, I had the desire for vengeance to say, like, do you know what this guy is? Do you know what him and his wife as well, what they are? Right? The spitting in my face thing was not these people have been in more, some people love feuding. These people have been in mortal feuds their entire lives with lots and lots of people. And I just didn't know that this guy I did a favor for was involved in a mortal feud with them. I had no idea. I couldn't keep track. I hadn't heard of it. That's the truth. And the favor had nothing to do with them. Had nothing to do with them. I swear it was, really. In any case, I thought about what to do. The one time religiously where you're allowed to tell people something negative about someone else is if you are 100% certain that it is necessary to protect some potential victim. Right? This would seem to be an example of that. But I also knew, of course, that I was biased. People don't like getting spat in the face and shouted at in public. Being told, I can buy you and sell you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you 1,000 times over. People don't enjoy that. I knew I was biased, and I didn't want to do the wrong thing. I actually asked people what to do. I asked people, without mentioning names of the situation, I asked people what is the right thing to do? The response that I was given was that I do not have. I do not have a requirement. It's a requirement. Bear in mind, this is not one of those things where it's an option. Do I tell them about what this fellow is like or not? You either must or you may not, according to the religious law. So I was told that it's still within the may not category, because ultimately, if he's marrying into this family, he will be on the inside of it. In other words, whatever evil they project out and do unto others won't be done unto him and to his seed. I hope that's true. I haven't followed up. I have no idea. But eventually, when these people kept coming after me for no reason, we had not even spoken, this fella. We had not spoken in months. I had not seen him in months. And he went out of his way to threaten. He went physically over to physically threaten and to threaten monetarily, because he owns all the money, people who gave me good references for a job. He went over to them threatening them to have to pull back their references so that I wouldn't get that job. This is months after I had not done anything bad to him, bear in mind. Nothing! I hardly even ever told it. Some people witnessed this business of the spitting, but otherwise I told very few people about it and never said a negative word about it. Like I said, not even in a situation that could have possibly involved his family. And yet, just because he's that kind of piece of shit, that was what he did. All right. Well, hopefully, I have a hand in the fact that he is now sitting in a federal penitentiary, where he will either die eventually or be released in the year, I think, 2039. It's unlikely I have too much of a hand in it, but I like to think that some of the things that I let people know about thereafter, and again, when someone keeps coming after you, and there's nothing you can do about it, you got to do what you got to do. Well, obviously, this person has done plenty of wrong things in this world, and it was time that somebody find out about it. There's that. One more example about why people should not fuck with me. And this is not a threat at all. This is not at all. I promise you that unless you're a psychopath or a sociopath, you will never have any serious problem with me. I can absolutely promise you that. We can always resolve, I believe almost every conflict on earth is a misunderstanding. That is my true and firm belief. It really, really, really is. Which is why recently on Twitter I was actually asking these people who are very, very serious anti-Semites of the kind that want to kill all the Jews, some of the famous fellas, not some rando who wouldn't bring along any followers, because I could use the followers. I need people to actually watch. I said, listen, you're invited on my podcast. I understand if you want to be anonymous, because it doesn't necessarily help your life if you say, hey, let's kill all the Jews, and you have 40,000 followers on Twitter. But if you're not anonymous, come on, let's have a conversation, because and it's not one of those gotcha things. It really isn't. And by the way, I genuinely believe that almost all of the evil that humans do to each other is through misunderstandings and through the fact that we're living in this weird, fucked up world ever since civilization began, where we are living in a world that we did not evolve to live in, or according to the Bible, that God did not create us to live in. He created us in an Eden where you're not supposed to work, you're not supposed to have even romantic relationships and get children per se. But to get into the Eden story, I've hinted at it a number of times in some of these lectures. I hope that you, at some point or other, we'll have to speak at greater length about it, because it's pretty intelligent. But the basic point is we did not evolve to live in the sort of world that we live in. And therefore, we all do harm to each other all the time. And it's sad and it's unfortunate. And we accept most of it as just, hey, that's the way the world works. But pretty much any time it's personal between people, almost every single time it's a matter of miscommunication, unless they continue to require things from each other, which was, again, the Adam and Eve story, why they suddenly needed the fig leaves to cover their nakedness. Prior to that, they had no wiliness. They were not trying to trick each other into anything. There was no trickery. They were on the same team. That's where wiliness, that's what the word orum, nakedness, it really means wily. It says the snake was the most, if you know the Eve story, it says the snake was the most orum in Hebrew, the most naked of all the animals. What does that mean? All right, animals, and hey, they're not even naked. They get to shed their skins. They actually have skins that they shed. The word means wily. That's what the word naked means. If someone is hiding, then, well, unfortunately in our society, they could have good reason to hide. They could be completely in the moral right and yet suffer for not hiding. But oftentimes that's what it is. In any case, I really believe that it's miscommunications, even with people who, and also due to hurts. We've all been hurt. People shown a little love, a little, it often, a little care. It often melts away, and people want, I believe that most people want to be good. I have found, and again, I don't think I'm really that unique in this, but I have found that making people smile is a tremendous pleasure. I know plenty of other people I've talked to who have found the same thing, right? I really think that is the human norm. In any case, the second example, and I can really only think of one more example in my life, and the third one was resolved because the person, the third one was resolved quite nicely. Someone who had stolen all of my money. The second example is a more detailed one. The third one, someone had stolen all of my money. We actually resolved it. Because he thought I was going to kill him. He did. Because the kind of things that he did, a lot of people would kill him for. So when I actually showed up at his home, looked him straight in the eye, and said, "Give me back my fucking money," he really thought his life was on the line. Anyhow, we're friends now. Well, not friends, but and we don't acquaint either. But I have no issue with him any longer. But the second example, really, and I guess the only other one that I can think of, was a number of years ago. Somebody stole all of my mother's money, all of it. Again, through one of these affinity scams. An ultra-Orthodox Jew in her community, my mother being an ultra-Orthodox Jewess. My mother having been raised by these Holocaust surviving people who were so incredibly fucked up in the head. You would not believe the home she was raised in. My grandparents, thank God, lived long enough that I got to know them very well, and I love the hell out of them. But I can just imagine having her life was not a good one growing up. Anyway, so she fell back on Christ. I say Christ kind of to annoy her in case she hears this. Not Christ. Hashem, meaning the name, the Jewish God, whatever. She fell back on religion really hard as her fallback understanding. Unfortunately, her God is the kind who lets people get turned into ashes. So that's kind of her expectation of the world and of God and all the rest. But, yeah. But trusting another, ultra-Orthodox Jew who seems to have a big home in the neighborhood, who is always hosting rabbis who visit from other countries, that this fellow does. He hosts rabbis in his home. He has an honored seat in the synagogue, which, for the record, that concept itself is really messed up. But this thing about people paying their way into religious righteousness has been going on since before any of the modern religions existed. You go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and you can see there are little statues that people used to pay to have praying on their behalf in their pagan temples. So this, paying for honors in synagogues and churches and mosques and every other kind of nice institution has been going on since forever. It's an unfortunate, terrible travesty. And according to Maimonides, such things as that ruin the good name of all the good things in the world and are among the worst things you can do. Maimonides, by the way, great rabbi scholar from about 1,000 years ago, also known as Rambam. Just mentioning that because I figure a lot of people watching this might know, but in case you don't. Yeah, it goes way, 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 way back, because at the end of the day, the way civilization functions is that unless you're some kind of magical Gandhi kind of guy, the first one, Mohandas K. Gandhi, not the people who stole his last name and became a political dynasty, hilarious, and put him on the banknotes and put up statues of him, all the things he would have hated. But unless you're someone like Gandhi, who not only is, sincere and genuine and honest and open, but also has a million other qualities that make him able to function in a world that is quite, adversarial, and not two people like him, two genuine people. Unless you're someone like him, whose name is remembered forever because there are so few people who have both of those qualities of actual genuineness and of also being able to withstand the tempests of a hypocritical society, you're going to have to accept money for your good causes from people who aren't necessarily the world's finest human beings themselves. Just is that way. Anyway, this guy who stole my mother's money, and I tried over and over again to see what we can do to make any kind of deal that he could even just pay back half of it, and that would be fine. Yeah, wouldn't do it. Wouldn't do it. Oh, obviously he's got the world's best lawyers and whatever else. And it goes without saying that his brother is a gazillionaire Orthodox Jew. It's unfortunate, that sometimes this idea of not speaking Lashon Hara, not speaking evil, it's a complicated thing, like I said. I spoke about before, not speaking to other people. It's a complicated subject because sometimes it has to be done. Unfortunately, usually when people are doing it, they're not necessarily always doing it for the right reasons, which is why there are many books written about all the laws of when you can and when and should and must speak. In any case, this was one of those instances. I'm not saying I was doing it for religious reasons or whatever else, so please don't pin religion on me or me on religion. But what I did was I wrote up the entirety of the story of what he had done, including quotes from his brother and from other family members without mentioning those people by name, but close family members, exactly what they said about him and how long he's been doing these scams to people, essentially his entire life. And he lives well and is honored and has all the rabbis staying at his home, and therefore he is able to continue his scam upon naive, suspecting people like my mother. Photographed his fake checks that he gave my mother. The whole thing, word for word. Told him I would do it if we didn't at least speak to me face to face and have a conversation and let's see what we can resolve and how to solve this problem. Didn't care. He's been threatened lots of times before. Lots of people make threats. I'm not one of those people. I don't make threats. If I make a threat, it's not a threat. It's truth. And like I said, this is really the only other time that I can think of where it's actually happened, in addition to the example of the fellow now sitting in prison. I'm not glad that he's sitting in prison, for the record. The only reason I'm saying the story is because you have to know what happens if you're an asshole and you don't stop, for whatever reason, you don't stop trying to ruin someone's life. Don't assume that because they're a nice guy, they are a complete and utter pussy. They might just eventually do what's right. With this instance, I wrote up the entire thing and I took 4 or 5 pages, photocopied it, and put it in the mailboxes of every single person within a 1 mile radius of his home. His whole family situation kind of got into a bit of a breakup. He is no longer honored by anybody anywhere. He cannot continue his Affinity Scams anymore. It's done. I'm mentioning these stories because I guess I might have to share this video with the dentist motherfuckers. I told them about this in an email just now. I wrote them a very lengthy email, most of it kindly and understanding and excusing and all the rest. But I mentioned these two stories for the first time in my life that I have ever told people these things. But I guess it needs to be on video, otherwise what's the point? People need to know. I would also recommend don't fuck with other people, not just me. And I don't even have to say this again. If you're watching this, you're not one of the people who needs this message. It's really just for actual sociopaths or psychopaths. And there are so very, very few of those, regardless of what you might hear, and regardless of the fact that everybody has at some point or other referred to their significant other or to one of their parents or other close family members or boss as a psychopath or narcissist or so. Having, again, investigated and gotten to know on friendly basis numerous people, I can even only say that I have met 2 narcissists in my life. People who truly are absolute real narcissists. People who are at the extreme rare of these kind of conditions, there's so very few of them. And they're not watching this video, and it wouldn't do them any good. But if they were, or if you know them, you should let them know not to. I'm trying to open up a new era in this world, which will be hard to do with only 100 followers. But I am giving it a try, of complete honesty and straightforwardness. Not of the kind of honesty of, I told her she was ugly because, hey, I'm just saying the truth. No. Everything I said before about when the Torah says, don't be a peddler. Let there be no peddlers in your midst. Meaning people who go from place to place, peddling not just wares, but stories. A lesson we need today more than ever before. I believe in that extremely strongly. But all the other secrets, let's talk them out. Like I said, the anti-Semites, this one in particular that I was speaking with on Twitter a couple days ago, this fellow, I think he actually at one point was probably an Orthodox Jew because he seems to be have fluency in a lot of Jewish texts, which is where he's able to collate his chosen quotes about how the Jews are trying to kill everybody and therefore you have to kill all the Jews. I didn't read really very far down his thing. It's just that on Twitter, Talmud was trending. Talmud, also, I don't have to say Gemara. If you know the word Talmud, you know the word Gemara. Just the opposite, I mean. If you know the word Gemara, you probably know the word Talmud. Talmud, a repository of ancient Jewish texts from approximately 1800 years ago. Whatever. In any case, it's a lot of stuff, and there's no commas and periods in it, hard to read, and this guy seems to know it well. I specifically invited him. I would love to have that podcast with him. I really would. Maybe he's actually like the worst kind of worst. But truthfully, my assumption is that there is some misunderstandings going on, and he is open. I saw some headline recently. I didn't bother to read the story because these days you can't know if you can trust such stories because everybody wants to read them, so it's easy clickbait. But the headline there was an African-American fellow in the South who apparently converted, is what the headline said, but converted 400 Ku Klux Klan white supremacist members into not being racist. Basically, he would seek them out. By the way, for the record, I have also sought out, I don't live in the South though, but I have been to the South and I have been other places, and I have sought out the worst sorts of racists that I can find and whatever else. And the Klan, for the most part, is really just a fake. The Klan, for the most part, is really just something that is aggrandized by people who love the idea that there is the Klan out there because it gives them the kind of drama they enjoy. But the Klan is just, it's a couple of taxi drivers with no lives at all. But racists exist. But I believe the generality of the story. I do. Again, didn't read it. But I believe it. I absolutely believe it. a black guy who probably went on some internet boards and found people speaking bad about black people and whatever else, and probably, wrote to them in person sincerely, genuinely, and met them in person. I don't think that he did it for glory. Maybe he did. Again, I didn't read the story. But I 100% have no problem believing it, even though, again, it's a kind of story everybody's looking to write because it's such clickbaity stuff. I really think it's true. I really, 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 really do. I really do. But in this new world of openness, scams won't survive. Evil people, I don't even think they exist. I really don't. But people who do continuous evil for the sick pleasure of it, over and over and over again without stopping, just for no reason, people who won't do what's right, it's not, that kind of world won't work for them. For the record, I think that even in that kind of world, we still wouldn't need prisons, never mind other penalties. I think the worst kind of punishment we might need is to put that kind of person in the stockade in the public square for a few hours so that everyone gets to see them and whatever else. And truth is, if they have what to say in their defense, let them. They don't have to be bent over in the stockade even. Let them be there, and like the Ukrainians have been doing. Not that I'm supporting this, just I'm saying I think the worst kind of punishment that mankind should really ever have to have is something like tying someone up around a pole in the middle of town, with putting what the punishment is for after a trial and all the rest, jury of peers, things that don't exist at all in these countries that claim where they exist, such as America. Jury of peers and trials. No, they really don't. They really don't. And let that person have their say. And if in fact they are as guilty as a completely impartial jury can determine, then from thenceforth people will know not to trust them. Everyone has seen their face. People have attempted to speak to them. I don't think they should be physically harmed in that sort of situation. I don't think they should be shamed, just forced to face the public. I even think for the worst of the worst of the worst, that's kind of the most that we'll need in punishment-wise, in the sort of world that I would like, that I'm trying, without knowing how precisely to get there or what it would look like, that I'm trying to bring about through this channel. Yeah. Okay. And I'm sorry that I've said all these negative things, because there's so much negative that people say. Life is good. Life is great. Life is fine. I would like to, and I've made this offer plenty of times in real life and on Twitter and elsewhere. I'll make this offer here too, but let me tell you why it's a complicated offer to make. The offer is, if you need help, please reach out. I can't help you with more than with words and a little bit of time. But if you're in some kind of desperate situation or stuck or something, and there's a possibility, and I don't care if we've never met, I don't care if you haven't watched any of my videos, if the person, if you yourself who are watching this know somebody else that you're referencing to me, that you're referring to me. If someone is in some way at the end of their rope, if I can help, and I'm saying 15 minutes because, well, this is the reason why. The reason why is because I have had situations where people get attached to me and start following me around like a pet puppy. It literally happened 2 days ago. Coming back from, actually not 2 days ago, it was on Tuesday, when I went to go see the office manager for this dentist guy in person, after speaking to everyone else there, after going there multiple times, all the rest. When I went there in person to go speak to him, and the reason I'm doing this is because I've still had to write 2 unresponded to emails since then. But after going to speak to him, obviously I was not in the very best of moods at all. And I had a lot to do, and this was not what a person wants to do with their life. I just want to be able to eat, you understand? The details, if I have to tell you, I'll tell you. But I have difficulty eating because of what a particular dentist of theirs did, because they hired him and they essential, what I told you. At the train station, right upstairs, there was a fellow, obviously an immigrant. His English wasn't very good. I got to know him quite well. Like I'm saying, he became kind of like a puppy following me around, hard to get rid of. Haitian fellow, he's been in America for about a year, and didn't know how to get. He was trying to get to Canarsie from Borough Park. Didn't know how to do it. Didn't understand how to use Google Maps. Didn't really understand his phone or any of that. And his English wasn't very good, and people are afraid of talking to other people who come over to them. And nope. And he was saying, school, I can't, and everyone just stepping, especially at a train station. Everyone's afraid of everyone else at a train station because a few nut jobs in New York have pushed people in front of trains. Those stories get famous, but, it doesn't happen very often. You should talk to people, I think. I mean, make your own decisions. I don't want you to be overly trusting because of me. Okay, so continue to make your own decisions. Yeah, so I didn't just show him, but I am confident that I am the first person to have, other than perhaps immediate family of his, that has treated him like a human being in the entire year that he's been in America. Certainly the first person who speaks fluent English. The first person born in America. In other words, it's possible that people in his Haitian community whom he has human relationships with, I promise you, I swear to you, there's nobody who he has had a human conversation with since then. Someone who actually, I spent the time, I taught him how to use Google Maps. I told him how to, that he's wasting battery by having the Wi-Fi when he doesn't need it, etc. Spoke for a while. I told him I had to go, whatever. And then when he saw me again, I just switched cars from the train. I left and got into the next car. He saw me again. He was so happy. Oh, I saw you. He came over to talk to me. 4 times I had to do this before I just got off the bus. It had stopped and just, I'm saying this just happened recently. I've had people move in with me. So sometimes when I offer someone help who's at the end of their rope, I'm like saving their life. I'm not saying it happened with this fellow. I don't know. Maybe he was, but it's happened. I know for a fact it's happened that I've saved people's lives, and I can understand. I can be a dependent individual too. I understand dependency. I come from a family that has had issues with this. Easy to blame it all on Hitler. Don't know if it's true or not, but I'm sure it didn't help. So I understand that. And if I really am able to help somebody that much, I can easily see them, expecting too much of me and being dependent. And I don't know how to deal with that. I really don't. It's why I have not had YouTube pages. Well, I have not been active anywhere in the social world with a given, address, whether it's physical or online or even a given name or any kind of, I really believe in the ancient biblical lesson of living in the moment. It's not only in the Bible, it's the Buddhist lesson. We all know this, right? It's not really much of a secret. And it's what civilization has taken from us in exchange for a few goodies. But now we already have all the goodies we need. We can kind of go back to that. Yeah, but I hated those times where people have and there have been serious people who have said that I should be the serious people. By serious people, I mean even famous people. And I can't look you in the eye when I say this because it's just like the most sickeningly demented, self-aggrandizing thing you can say. But famous, holy religious, popular people who thought that I should be the Messiah. Again, can't look you in the eye when I say that, especially because I'm not sure that I understand even what a Messiah is or if it could exist or any of that. I'm not making any kind of religious claims or any kind of great personal claims about myself. I'm just telling you something that's true. Maybe it's not true if I couldn't look you in the eye. Well, maybe if I couldn't look you in the eye, there's some element of it that bothers me. But what's definitely true is that forget even those. I wasn't worried about them. They have their own, good lives, but plenty of less serious people, plenty of people whose lives are not going quite as well, who have thought and said the same thing and wanted me to lead them, whatever else. And therefore I start every new relationship with people, as I did with the first bunch of videos I put on here. I think I eventually made them private when people told me to. I would start off by saying, let me tell you all my faults, right? Because I don't want to have that first good impression and then people expect too much and then they hate me for it and whatever else. So yeah. Anyway, that's all of that. And just so you know that now, me personally, to know where I stand. On the one hand, I feel there's plenty that I want to and should and have to do today. But one thing that I feel a sort of moral responsibility to do is to check email to see if this person wrote back. But what I really want is to spend the rest of the day living freely after I've done this, 1 hour's worth of discussing things that aren't entirely positive. Living freely is almost entirely positive. It really is. It's almost entirely positive. It's so good I can't even tell you how good it is. But I want to say goodbye on that tone. Unfortunately, I have email on the same phone that I'm recording right now. So I'm going to have to pause this, check the email. If he did respond, then I guess I'll let you know about it. Hopefully he didn't, and I'll be able to vow for myself that for the rest of the day, we're back in Eden. Guilelessness doesn't exist. Before we knew the snake existed, before we knew that any person had anything, a complete and total naive trust of all people, which is usually how I prefer to live my life and has almost always worked out very, very nicely. One thing it has not done for me, by the way, is long-term benefits. Because, by that point, you already start to develop an interdependent relationship. So I just cut those off, which is why, quite unfortunately, you're not really going to believe me on this because it sounds exaggerated, but girls give me their number, often unsolicited, the people I meet randomly, all the time. This week alone, 2 people. This week's on Sunday, 2 people. I haven't even gotten back to them though. Because once I do, I want something out of them also. When I didn't want anything out of them at all, when it's just a conversation because I enjoy giving someone happiness and enjoying the pleasure of melding souls with another human being, so of course they want more of that. But being human, and I believe strongly in being human, strongly, you have no idea, by the way, the inner temptation I have to swear to celibacy. That's why I understand a lot of these trans stuff going on of guys swearing off their balls. I understand it. I have a strong temptation to make that kind of vow. I have therefore had to make a vow to not be celibate. Swear. Anyway, but if I were to get back to them, obviously I want something from them as well. leaving aside anything to do with physical sexuality. Of course, that's part of it. But the romance, the relationship, anything. It applies to getting back to guys too. Guys give me the numbers too. I let them know, no homo, but all the time, I have so many voicemails, and I feel bad. I don't really know what to do about it. So whatever. Often after a few days, I text back, hey, how you doing? And then by then, it's just whatever. So I apologize to all of you who are watching this, for whom this has happened. I'm not good at relationships because I don't really know how to do it once we're out of Eden. Once we're out of Eden and there's some kind of, assumed potential possibility of give and take, I'm confused, So I'm sorry. But I want to step back into Eden now, really, really badly. I feel a moral responsibility to this person to check the email. Also, that's it. So, pause, and you'll hear back from me in just a few moments. So, freeze frame. I'm back. So, I'm going to finish off the story right here. But because I really do enjoy letting people know how very, very, very imperfect I am and what difficulties I have, and therefore why not, no matter how helpful I might be at some point, not to rely on me, really. First of all, let me reiterate what I said before. Please do reach out. Please do reach out if you or if someone you know can possibly be helped. That's all I can say. But secondly, I should also say that with regards to that, as well as with regards to everything else in life that we may ever have to do with each other, as well as with regards to these videos, here's a little quirk about me. So, I can explain the psychology bit, how it turned out that way, with my grandmother in Auschwitz surviving Auschwitz just so she could have a child. She was a teenage girl at the time. And you really need a big motivation to get yourself through Auschwitz. And then putting all of those expectations and whatnot and fears and terrors into my mother, who then, me as her firstborn son, who was born through miraculous yada yadas, longer story, really got a lot of that from my mother. And if I wasn't in contact with her at any time period for more than a few minutes, she would assume that I don't know what she actually went on in her head, but the impression that I would get was that she assumed that I was dying in a ditch and she would go insane. The number of times that she called the police because she hadn't heard from me I'm saying insane person. But this is not entirely unknown among Holocaust people, but she kind of made an art out of it. So I always tell people, don't necessarily expect me to get back to you, whatevs. So I'm saying now, if this is my last video, probably doesn't mean I'm dead. I know you're not my mother, and you're not, unless you are my mother, who's watching this. But why does my head look so weird in this hat? It's a new hat. I liked it, but right now it looks funny in the machine, in the camera machine. It might be my last video. Anytime you hear from me, it might be my last thing. Doesn't mean I'm dead. Doesn't mean go look for me. Means that I believe in living freely and I want to be left alone. Right? I don't know how exactly to fit that together with the idea that I'm, if somebody enters me for the race for president seriously, then I will actually go into that race, as I've said I would, and I commit to that. And I will show up at the debates and I will speak the truth or whatever else as I see it and try to bring about this more honest world. But that's a decision that I made. And whatevs. In any case, so to finish it up, here's what happened. I checked, and they did not write back to me, the individual, nor any of the attorneys that I'm sure he has contacted now, or any of the other various people that help them get out of their scam problems. They probably have some toughs on the pay too. God, I like my bones. Well, what can you do? Life is life. So, like I said, I wanted to end it on a positive note here and all. So this is what I wrote in the interim before I checked to see if he had written back. And I will quickly read it to you because it's my own private little shit, but I just told you a whole bunch of other private stuff, so here we go. And I want to leave you with the love of Shabbos and Eden and goallessness and freedom, which is such an unbelievable human gift, and it's ours just for existing. So long as you have food and are not at that moment in danger, you have it just for existing. Adam was granted it the moment he opened his eyes. Oh, how far we've come that we've forgotten it. Okay, here's my 3 pages. Because I am sharing things that I wrote to myself in my own language, technically I would want to do a lengthy explanation of each, but I will do a very, very, very brief explanation of anything that I feel I need to do here. And this video, I promise you, will end within the next 5 minutes, guaranteed. Hopefully quicker. Well, definitely quicker, because within the next 5. This is the order I wrote them in. It's why I'm sharing it that way. Again, not doing the Instagram bullshit is what I'm trying to do. The complete, straightforward honesty. If I had somebody to follow me maybe not 24/7, because it's possible the human would go crazy if they were watched all the time, especially someone like me who specifically spent 20 years leaving that and trying to not have that kind of thing. Yeah, but nonetheless, at this point, I would, for at least 5 hours a day, if I could have somebody live stream me through whatever I'm going through, good, bad, ugly, whatever it happens to be. I want that. I want that. I think we should all be doing that. I think we need to recognize our own humanity is okay. And other people, their humanity is okay too. And that because somebody writes or does some stupid thing that gets caught on video and put on Twitter for the entire world to try to make them kill themselves is a bad, bad thing to do. Let's reconnect with our own very imperfect humanities. True and 100% as we can. Close as we can. Here's what I wrote. Begin the fun of vengeance through revelation at Chatzos on Friday, for it is holy. First thing I want to say is that, I really don't want this whole fucking involvement thing. I want to be able to eat. I don't think it's too much to ask that if you go to a dentist and pay them money and they mess up a tooth and you keep going back to them and you're in contact with everyone in their office, and you eventually have to go to the emergency room because they won't do an x-ray on you. And the emergency room, they say, hey, a lot of your tooth is still left back in there and it's pushing through your gums, and that's why you're in such constant pain. And then you go to the dentist and he's either drunk or on some kind of drug at that time, and you find out later he's lost his license in other states for doing terrible things. And he takes out the rest of the tooth and also chisels away so much of the bone that you can't have an implant put in unless you have a real surgical expert do some other stuff where they add more bone or whatever else. Complicated things. I don't think it's too much to ask that they just fix it. I'm not asking for pain and suffering or any kind of... Just do as much as it costs them. Get me these implants. I really think that's fair. But I don't want to be involved in this. You can see how little I'm asking. If I wanted to be involved in this fight, then I could ask for a whole lot more. Anyway. So, the fun of vengeance is not something that I'm very familiar with, which is why I had to write it down right here at the very top. I did say I finished the video quickly, so I shall. It's something that I found, however, is that when you're doing the right thing, for me personally, doing the right thing, even doing, at one point, I rescued some guy who was being murdered by Chechen terrorists. Great, okay? It's a story for another time if it's relevant. And I have not told that story to many people either, because there are parts of it that could be whatever. There's no reason. I'm not that kind of guy. But I found that when it started working out, when things started coming really, really together, I was enjoying that it was working out. I was taking pleasure in it, and I wasn't completely focused as I was before on the pain and suffering that this man was going through, which I have been focused on for months priorly as I tried to make everything happen. And then in those final few days, as I was actually getting all the pieces put together. Oh, for the record, by the way, I got him out on Pesach. First day Passover. Really happened. Yeah, and there are, in case anybody ever, sorry, I was going to say in case I can give you who cares, whatever, don't believe me. The Pesach part is interesting. Anyway, so the fact that I was enjoying so much more, the fact that all the pieces were coming together and I was actually making this thing happen, than I was feeling relief at the fact that he's being saved, and that I was going to be able to actually save his life. And that taught me something that is difficult for me to get in, but I think it's important for us all to understand, especially those of us who do some good things sometimes, that God gave us or whatever nature, enjoy it. If, one can enjoy doing bad things or neutral things or good things. You don't have to enjoy being good. If you're doing the good thing, much better that you enjoy it for plain human simple reasons like, hey, it's all coming together, or hopefully it'll be fun getting vengeance on these sons of bitches, hopefully it won't come to that, but if it does, hopefully I'll be able to enjoy it. Better that than to be focused on the saintly aspect of it. Because if you're so focused on doing it for the right reasons and holiness and whatever else, you're not going to do it. If you're focused on it for the fun, you're going to do it. It's better. That guy's life might have been saved. At that moment, I made a decision at that moment. At that moment, I said, oh my God, why am I not being sad about his thing? And I made a kind of deal with God, sort of like, please don't take, but this is the right thing to do. I swear I don't give a shit about him. And I give a shit only about my thing succeeding. That, of course, means him being saved, this individual. And that was 100%. That was 100% the right thing to do, to get rid of any kind of, idealisms. That's why I'm writing here the fun of vengeance, that I really hope I'll be able to get into heavily, if God forbid I have to. So begin the fun of vengeance through revelation. Simple enough what revelation means. Letting people know. At Chatzois means midday, or it could mean midnight, in this case midday, on Friday, for it is holy. Basically, there's nothing as holy as Shabbos, the seventh day, when you don't worry about anything, when it's there's no way for me to describe to someone who doesn't understand exactly how holy Shabbos is, nor for those of you who do understand how holy Shabbos, the seventh day, is, the Sabbath. You might not understand how I can relate to it at such a level without necessarily keeping all of the same rules all the time that you think might be necessary for keeping it. Nonetheless, they both happen to be true. It's how I regard it. So I'm starting at Chatzos on Friday, when one should only be preparing for the Shabbat. It's a holy, holy time, because this is holy work. This is holy work. Im ein anili mili. This is holy work. This has to be done. This is holy work. This individual has a right to eat. If I were someone else, would it be holy work to do this on behalf of them? It would. Is it not holy work because I'm doing it on behalf of me? Next, if they have not written back as of now, and they have not because I checked, with the exception of eating, that if you watch my most two recent videos, you'll see that I'm on a little bit of a diet right now. So I mentioned, the Edenic concept of Shabbos. The one rule they hadn't eaten actually was not to eat from a certain tree. It's not an actual tree. The metaphors and whatever else, don't worry about right now. But nonetheless, in this case, it's actually physical. Maybe it was a tree. In this case, it's physical. On Shabbos, when I did Shabbos a few days ago, as I explained in my most recent video, I ate whatever I liked, because Shabbos is a time where there's no goals whatsoever. You're not going for anything. So therefore, regardless of calories, whatever else, eat what you want. And I ended up putting on more weight than I had lost in the entire week before eating only cauliflower and working out. So, yeah. So that has to be an exception for today. I'm not going to, other than water, or possibly if something else, water, other than water. I expect to not have anything else to eat the rest of the day, up until midnight at least. So anyway, so I wrote, if they have not written back as of now, and they have not, like I said, with the exception of eating, I am in goal-free Shabbos through Chatzos. In this case, Chatzos means Chatzos, approximate midnight tonight. And once this video is posted, and that could take a little while because YouTube, and I'm still using a mobile connection instead of a faster Wi-Fi, I'm going to have to right now this phone is extraordinary. It's beautiful. Thank God this phone is amazing. I'm going to have to slightly degrade the visuals a little bit. Not too bad. Still to probably till 1080, which is still good. But this is filmed in you can count the pores on my skin. Yeah. If they have not written back as of now, with the exception of eating, I'm in goal-free Shabbos through Chatzos. I explained to you what goal-free means. Nothing exists. There's no future. There's no past. Nada. And once this video is posted, no writing, recording, deciding. Yeah. No writing, physical, no writing, notes. No recording, video, audio, anything. Nothing that could affect the future. Because if it could affect the future, it gets in the way of living in the now a little bit, doesn't it? No deciding of any sorts. I will check for no communications, obviously, not checking the email to see if the fella wrote back, whatever, or anyone else did. I will check for no communications, including text, whatever else, nor take any phone out with me. In other words, I'm heading out right now, and I won't take my phone or even a phone that doesn't have internet. I won't take out with me either. Won't take any phone out with me. That's actual freedom. I am free. Wait. Hold on a second. That was actually page 3. Good. Page 2 was actually the begin the vengeance thing on Friday. Page 2 is a little more about that. It says, first, you must make 3 attempts at reconciliation on Wednesday and or Thursday. And then you wrote in parentheses, or today, if they wrote back already. After writing this is when I checked. I wanted to get all my decisions in a row without being influenced from external thoughts. So I didn't know if they had not yet written back, would have been allowed to start today. But in any case, and therefore, of course, Eden, the 3rd page, wouldn't have begun. First, you must make 3 attempts at reconciliation on Wednesday and or Thursday. An unanswered phone call is an attempt. In other words, if I make an attempt through calling and they don't answer, that counts as an attempt. Yeah, a lot of legalistic Jews have been involved in society for a very long time, have been the law writers and the law interpreters for a very, very, very long amount of time. So even though I'm doing this for myself, I have a very serious issue with law in general, for the record. But for myself, I want to make sure that I have it clear on paper exactly what my laws are. So I apologize if it sounds silly, but I guess, it's my heritage and it's my mind and it's how he is. So an unanswered phone call is an attempt. Whatever other attempts you might make, in other words, writing an email or a text or something else, at least 3 must be at least by voice. At least 3, I must make at least 3 attempts to speak with somebody from their thingamajig. Or face-to-face. Obviously, that's the ideal, to meet somebody in person. It goes without saying, for reconciliation, meet somebody in person. But at least 3 must be, in these days, face-to-face. Who even does, they must be by voice. Emails and texts do not count for those 3 attempts. Then, if they have not written back as of now, with the exception of eating, I am in goal-free Shabbos Chatzos, midnight. And once this video is posted, no writing, recording, deciding. No decisions of any kinds. I will check for no communications, nor take any phone out with me. I am free. Yeah, so right now I just got one little responsibility ahead of me, and that is to post this little thingamajiggy. And I guess because I'm going to leave the phone back here behind me, I don't even have to worry about the hour and a half it'll take to upload. What magnificent, magnificent. So I'll be done with this in about 15 minutes. And I wish for it just I don't know. Listen, I wish for you all good things. I'm not going to say I wish for you the Shabbos, whatever, because you don't necessarily understand what I'm referring to. This Edenic concept of really living in that kind of moment. Alan Watts is good on this as well, if you're familiar with who he is. But so let me just say, I wish for you every beautiful thing. I really do. Every beautiful thing. I wish for the whole world all the beautiful things. But you personally, thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. Please don't do it for my appreciation. Only do it if it works for you, for your own appreciation. But I appreciate it, and I love you for it. Thank you.